Now, if you're like most people, you've been raised with a belief, a very simple ingrained belief that you barely ever question. And that belief is, it's better to be in a relationship than it is to be single. Some of you have since changed that belief to the opposite, that it's better to be single than to be trapped in a relationship. And today, I'm going to be challenging both of those beliefs. For you to have either of these beliefs, you need to make two basic assumptions. One, that being in a relationship is different to being single, and two, that one is better than the other. Today, we're going to have a look at both of those assumptions, but particularly the first one. So I'd like you to open your mind for a second. Right now, you're certain that it's different to be in a relationship than it is to be single. And I'd like to ask you to open your mind to the possibility that it's not. Take a moment to think about what is the difference between being in a relationship and being single. What factor can you point to say that's what makes it different? No matter who it is, no matter where they are, what situation they're in, they will always have this difference if they're single and this difference if they're in a relationship. Take a second to figure out what that difference is. We can start by having a look at the different factors that are involved in socializing. Loneliness versus connection, boredom versus fun, being unloved versus feeling loved, feeling stuck versus feeling free, and so on. Now, the interesting thing about all these factors is that you can be either single or in a relationship and experience the whole range. You can be lonely while in a relationship, you can feel connected while being single, and vice versa, of course. You can be with someone who loves you and yet feel unloved. You can feel free in a relationship and stuck being single, or you can feel stuck in a relationship and free being single. You'll notice that none of these things are exclusively aligned to being single or being in a relationship. You can be any of them at any time. So again, I ask the question, what is the difference? What makes you say that is definitely being in a relationship and that is definitely being single? Now, a lot of you at this point will be frustrated. You'll be thinking, well, it's obvious, you're with someone. They are your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your wife or your partner or whatever you call them. But how do you know you're with someone? Well, it comes down to this key difference. The only way you can say you're in a relationship is that you expect the person will come back to you. I want you to just take that in for a second. The only difference between being single and being in a relationship is that you expect a person to be coming back to you. Now, when you're single and you interact with someone, you don't expect them to come back to you necessarily. They have no obligation or commitment to you. When you're in a relationship and your partner goes out to the shops, you expect that they will return. When they go to talk to someone else, you expect they'll come back to talk to you at some point. There's this expectation of return that you might have in a relationship that you don't have being single. And yet, when you're single, you can still expect people to come back to you. And when you're in a relationship, you can still worry that they won't. But let's just for the sake of argument say that being in a relationship means that you are entitled to somebody coming back to you. You can expect them to come back to you in a relationship in a way that you can't when you're officially single. Really what it comes down to, if you want to say that there is a difference between being in a relationship and being single, you have to prove that you are able to expect someone to come back to you. Of course, the problem with this is fairly obvious. You aren't guaranteed shit. Somebody could leave the house and never return, and that day is definitely going to happen at some point in the relationship. At some point, one of you is not coming back. Whether it's being dumped or leaving or cheating or being in an accident, being killed, dying of old age, at some point the relationship will end because one of you didn't come back to the other. So how can you expect that when the only certainty is that one day it's not going to happen? You think there's a commitment when you're in a relationship, that the person is basically explicitly or implicitly implied that they are never going to leave you permanently, that they're always going to come back. Except this is a promise that you cannot make. It's a promise that you cannot hope to keep forever. To say, I will never change my mind about you, I will never lose interest in you, you will never leave me, I will never die. You can't make that kind of promise, can you? So if you can't make that kind of promise, then you can't expect that promise to be delivered. Which means you cannot expect someone will come back to you. It is irrational to do so. So if we remove this expectation, then what? How is a relationship different to being single now? While you hold that thought in your head, how is a relationship exactly different to being single if you can't reasonably expect someone to return to you? We look at the second assumption, that not only is being single different to being in a relationship, it's worse. Many of us, maybe all of us, live in cultures where it's generally assumed that being in a relationship is better than being single. And there's this constant pressure, both indirect and very direct, to find somebody to be with. It's in every movie. It's always a love story. Someone's seeking someone. It's in the way somebody goes, oh, have you seen anyone? Should I set you up on a date? Essentially, it's this ongoing insult. If you're single, you're somehow in transition. You're not finished yet. Get on with it. People are always asking or implying. They're always checking in to see if you've found someone yet. All the media is pushing you towards finding a partner and satisfying that partner and keeping that partner. Basically, we're just constantly made to feel bad about not having someone. But what about bad relationships? Do you really think that all relationships are nothing but good times and pleasure? And what about the ones that are mostly not good times? Is that better than being single or worse? Is it better to be by yourself, doing whatever you want, or to be in an abusive relationship? Is it better to be lonely or to actually hate your partner or be scared of your partner constantly? If all relationships are always better than being single, then you have to say that being in an abusive, toxic, narcissistic relationship is better than being single. And if you can't say that, then why are you saying it's better to be with someone in general? It must be more specific than that, mustn't it? If it's not okay to be in any type of relationship, then you can't say any type of relationship is better than being single. You now have to start qualifying what type of relationship is better than being single exactly. Still bearing in mind that you have yet to prove that being in a relationship is actually, in a measurable way, different to being by yourself. What about this scenario? A single guy out on a date with a girl, she's not his girlfriend, they are not partners in any recognized committed way, and yet they have an amazing connection. They see eye to eye, their values are really aligned, they have a great time together, they feel like they can really just be themselves. Compare that to a marriage that's gone cold. They sleep in separate beds, they only have the most basic logistic conversations, transactional conversations, they no longer know each other like they once did, they don't feel safe to share with each other, their interaction is superficial at best, they're basically strangers living together. How can you say that this person is more single than the people in this marriage? Now technically these people are in a relationship and these two over here are single, and yet these two are connected and these two are not. So what exactly is the improvement on this side? What exactly is the advantage of being in the marriage over being able to connect with someone in a meaningful way, like the single hypothetical couple that we've talked about? Right now, as I make this video, my wife is not in the house. She's left to go shopping or do whatever it is that she's doing today. And I know that I can't expect her to return. There's bad weather, there's vehicles, there's all sorts of things that could kill her out there, and one day they might. As depressing as that is, I believe in facing the truth. The truth is one day she's not coming home. Maybe she just decides she doesn't want to. Maybe she just decides she no longer loves me and she runs away. That's possible. That could happen. So as I stand here alone making this video, how can I say I'm in a relationship for sure? In reality, I am all by myself here in this room, and what is the difference between that and being single? If while I sit here by myself talking to my cell phone to make you a video, you right now are sitting next to someone that you're deeply connected with and sharing this video with them, good job by the way, how can I say I'm more in a relationship than you are? Now you might not technically be in a partnership with that person that you're sharing this moment with, but you're more with someone than I am right now. And the only moment that exists is the present moment. So at this point in time, only one of us is really with someone, and it's not me. And yet I'm technically married. So again, I ask you, what is the key difference between being in a relationship versus being single, other than the delusion of expecting someone to return to you? The present moment is all that matters. You either feel connected in general, or you don't. Other people actually have very little to do with that. Now, I might feel connected to my wife while I'm talking to her, but I also feel connected right now. As weird as it sounds, I feel connected to you, even though at the time of this filming, I'm by myself and I don't know who you are. But I know that I'm going to broadcast this out to the world and that it's going to resonate with someone, and knowing that in this moment by myself makes me feel connected. It makes me feel like I'm part of something. So in a sense, I'd say right now, I have no sensation of being single, and it's got nothing to do with being married. It has to do with the behavior I'm engaging in right now to connect as a principle. I'm connecting with you and yet I'm by myself. Connection doesn't require your presence in this moment of time. A lot of people would argue that a relationship basically at least improves your likelihood of feeling connected. Basically, if you think you have a guaranteed partner, that false expectation again, that you're going to have more opportunities to feel connected. But is that true? What if your partner is cold? What if your partner is fake? What if your partner's lost interest in you? Do you really think in that kind of relationship you have a better chance of being connected than a single person who can walk out their door and talk freely with anyone they please? I have to be clear that I'm not saying that being single is better than being in a relationship. What I'm saying is there isn't a difference. The difference that we imagine is indeed that, imaginary. There is no real marker. You can't take someone to a doctor, give them heaps of tests, and be able to determine whether or not they're in a relationship. They will have the same basic biology and signs and everything going on as any average single person. You can be blissfully happy with your life single. You can be blissfully happy in a relationship. You can be miserable single. You can be miserable in a relationship. It all really comes down to how connected you are with the world. And that's got nothing to do with a partner. That is an internal experience. That is all about confidence and integrity and living with purpose. A partner can't guarantee that. Sometimes they help you with that. My partner certainly helps me live more with integrity. But I've also been in relationships that steer me away from integrity. I've been with people who make me feel less connected and more lonely. So it doesn't have any guarantee, and therefore there is no difference. There's no reason to pursue either being single or being in a relationship because neither of them guarantee you anything. Anything. There is no guarantees of increased quality of life in either singledom or being in a relationship. To learn more about self-connection and acceptance, try out our core values course in Brojo University. It's totally free and it'll help you figure out the recipe for feeling connected regardless of your relationship status. So let's sum this up. There's no such thing as being in a relationship. It's just an illusion, an expectation of someone coming back that you are not entitled to expect. Therefore, the only thing that's real is connection. Do you behave and live in a way that makes you feel like you're part of things? Or do you behave and live in a way that makes you feel separate and detached? A relationship will have almost nothing to do with that. It'll all be about your level of integrity. If you can figure that out, if you can learn to connect with yourself, as esoteric as that sounds, it's actually a very practical step-by-step process you can learn, like I talked about with the core values course and certain behaviors. I'm doing it right now as I make this video. I'm living in a way that makes me feel connected to myself by speaking what I think is the truth. Now, if you can learn how to do that, you will essentially be in a relationship with yourself, and that one is guaranteed to last. You always come back to yourself because you can't leave. The great thing about getting the relationship with yourself sorted out is that you can now connect with other people from a place of unconditional love and giving. They don't have anything you need anymore, so there's nothing you have to take from them. You just give. You give your relationship with yourself to them, which is the best kind of person to be in a relationship with. As opposed to what most people probably end up with is a relationship of codependency where you're constantly trying to take from each other to fill that internal hole. Those relationships can last over time, but they do not guarantee any of the things that you've been seeking, like love, connection, and quality of life. So take a moment to think about this. If there is no such thing as being in a relationship, if there is no difference and no quality difference between being single and being in a relationship, they both can be good, it depends on you. What are the implications for you? How does that change the reasons why you socialize? How does it change your choices of behavior each day? Do you keep seeking love and approval from other people, or do you change path and start seeking that from yourself? Start earning it, start proving yourself to yourself so that you want to be with you. The choice is yours. Thank you so much for putting up with me rant. Hopefully you can comment below and let me know your thoughts. Challenge me if you want. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm happy to hear it. Next step, of course, join the Brojo community. It's totally free and we're trying to grow as much as possible so that we have a huge community of support available for everyone. Next thing to do, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us boost our numbers and get this message out there to more people. And of course, get in touch with me if you have any further questions or dilemmas that I can help with. Dan@brojo.co.nz. I'll see you next time.